Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center. My name is Quentin Ring. I'm Beyond Baroque's executive director. We are thrilled to have you here for an afternoon of Wildmen and poetry. Said Wildmen being Rick Smith, Raindog, and Dave Crittendon. Very excited to have all of you here. These are all exceptional poets. I think we're going to have a good time. Before we get started, I just want to say a few words about Beyond Baroque before we dive into the program. I'd like to begin first by recognizing Beyond Baroque's presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielina and Tongva peoples. We acknowledge the wrong done to these peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their land. And as an arts organization, we are committed to uplifting Indigenous writers, communities, and their art. For those of you who don't know Beyond Baroque, we are Los Angeles' oldest literary institution with a 55-year history of supporting poets and writers through readings, performances, workshops, art exhibitions, all kinds of strange and unusual events here in this theater that I can't really explain fully right now. But we've helped launch the careers of poets ranging from Wanda Coleman to Amanda Gorman, artists like Mike Kelly and Bob Flanagan, and even musicians like the band X, who met and formed in our workshops. We're supported by our members, so please do consider becoming a member if you aren't one already. Members receive free entry to our events if we have to charge. They help keep events like this free as well. It's a huge support to all of our programming. It costs as little as $60 for an individual, $80 is a dual membership. You can see Swati and Jimmy in the bookstore about purchasing one or do so online. We really do appreciate any support you can provide. Just a little shout out about some upcoming programs. Next Friday, we have the book launch of Francesca Bell's new book. That's going to be great. 2 Saturdays from now, we have a pretty epic reading from the new anthology, Beat Not Beat. It's edited by Rich Ferguson. Includes an incredible array of poets writing in the beat, post-beat tradition. That's going to be, I think, like a 4-hour reading. It has like multiple blocks. It's kind of a marathon, so you can dip in and out of that. It should be fun. We also have a program on poetry and grief on May 26th with Cynthia Guardado, Diana Coy Gwynn, Crystal Littlebird Salas, and Nicholas Reiner. We have ongoing workshops, including our free Monday night fiction workshop with Raquel Baker, and our free Wednesday night poetry workshop with Jim Cushing. Those are online, so you can join from anywhere. And we also have a paid intensive workshop coming up also with Diana Coy Gwynn on May 20th. So please check out our website for more information, social media, and come back for more. Just a few words of thanks. Just want to thank all of our staff who are working on this program. Eric Alberg in the booth, Swati Gupta and Jimmy Vega in the bookstore. Iman Salinas couldn't be here as a programs coordinator, but he did all of the work putting this together. So I'm very grateful to all of them. And especially grateful to these 3 wonderful poets that we have here. Excuse me, Wildmen. They can be both, I think. They are both. So let's just dive into the program a little bit. So we have 3 readers. We're going to start with Raindog, aka R.D. Armstrong. He has been a poet for over 40 years. He retired a few years ago, thinking that his time as a writer was over. But after the pandemic, he realized he was not ready to retire. As Brendan Constantine said, Raindog is a journeyman poet, a longtime campaigner for the art and the health of the poetic community. I can't tell you how much Raindog has done for the poetic community through his press, Lummox Press, through his own work, his own poetry. I can't claim this line where Raindog and I were just talking about the other day, but our former director, Richard Morano, has put him in a lineage from was it Walt Whitman all the way through Bukowski, and I think that is very true.
Down to me. It sounded like the road ended at my house.
Yeah, I mean it's all. I would say all roads lead to Raindog's house.
That explains a lot.
But he is also an extraordinarily generous human being. He over the course of the pandemic, he donated to a huge number of literary organizations, including very substantially to Beyond Baroque. So I'm eternally in his debt. We're going to be celebrating him a little bit in the fall when we finally have a return to in-person fundraising, whatever, gala type event. So please, everyone, welcome one of LA's great poets, Raindog.
Hey, y'all. God, I feel like I had a momentary flashback of John Thomas coming across the stage with a bag of stuff, and I was like, That didn't happen. Come on. Come on, man. Don't lose it yet. Okay. Yeah, at least the cane is balanced. Not how balanced, sure how balanced I am. So I have in this bag some free merchandise, some black shirts that say poets are essential workers, which I thought was an amazing idea, but nobody agreed with me. You know, at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody was pushing and shoving to see who was going to be the most important person. So I have a considerable amount in here, and I kind of like to get rid of them because now that I'm not running a press, at least not for the public, you know. So let's see here. I picked some poems, and if I have any time left over, I'm going to read from my last book, which is called Orphan Words. I've been told it's the best work I've ever done, and it's all stuff that I wrote long ago. So the joke's on me, I guess. All right. Some of these are old, some of these are sort of new, and some of these are old.
Your audience.
Yes. Yes, I was trying to avoid, I was going to work my way into that with some smooth, slick poetry about aging, but now you've screwed the pooch. Okay, so this is the end of the comedy portion, and hopefully, and the poetry section. Okay, this is a song. This is a poem I wrote probably 45 years ago, but it's applicable today, and I want to folks in Ukraine that are fighting against those pesky Ruskies. Too soon. So much depends on the grinning of a lone child laughing on the run like Neruda's brown and agile child. At loose ends with seaweed hair, floating free, unadorned. A simple grace. Too soon the weight of anguish, a carpet of lilies on fields of Flanders, Belfast, Soweto, Compton, Sarajevo, Beirut, and I guess we should include Bakhmut. Too soon the tolling of the bell. Too soon the world is at once bigger and yet somehow smaller. Too soon the long night, like a blanket, covers us all. Should probably save it up till the end. I'll let you know if you doze off. Okay. This is for my esteemed colleague, Mr. Smith, Dr. Smith, I'm sorry. It's called Group Therapy, or one man's tasty morsel, ... I whacked the piñata of memory until something flew out and landed on the floor. It was gaily wrapped in a colored foil and was quickly pounced upon by the rest of the party. After a brief struggle, someone grabbed it, tore off the wrapper, and triumphantly held it aloft. This bright little bauble from my past was instead something unnameable, something dark and shriveled, something I had long since lost any real meaning, and worst of all, something that looked, for all my best intentions, like a piece of shit. Someone tossed it out the window into the street below, where two dogs got into a fight over which one was going to get to eat it. Sorry, my reading is a little... I'm not having a stroke, at least not that I don't think I am. Who knows? I mean, do you know when you're having a stroke? Okay, yeah, if you make it through. All right, this is sort of a more current one. I think I wrote this a few years ago. It's called Where's Liam Neeson When You Need Him? When he was doing all those movies about, I will find you, I will search you down, and I will serve you a good meal, and then I will kill you. Yeah. All right. Caught in a maelstrom of scammers, crooks, and liars, I live in a state of paranoid despair. Why is this happening? I'm a nice guy, reformed some might say, Raindog 5.0, the kinder, gentler Raindog. I help out the little guys in this crazy fucked up life, and yet it seems like every time I turn around, there's somebody trying to rip me off, which makes me wish I had someone who could help me deal with this mess. See the title. All right, we're whipping right through these. You might get more time, Rick, or Dave, or somebody. Okay, this is a relatively new one. I've actually started writing poetry again, but I'm writing short ones, so it's not haiku or anything. But I know that look, number 5. Old man stares slack-jawed at the blinking screen. I'll just wait for you guys to get settled, and then we can start again, because it totally throws me off. Look at me getting all prima donna. All right, I know that look, number 5. Old man stares slack-jawed at the blinking screen while nymphs tease and tempt, or so it seems. But really, does it matter what form the pornography takes to death by daggers? Death by the daggers of jealousy, or by the daggers of love, or by the daggers of war, or the slow death of old age? He knows we all fall prey to the temptations sometimes. For myself, though, I think I prefer the other band besides the Temptations. The Temptations were good, but there was another band that was really good. Okay, well, I'm actually at the end of my set. Well, I guess it works in with the time frame. Okay, all right. This is one of my favorite poems, and make sure I have all the pages to it. Okay. And it's called Eyes Like Mingus, and I imagine everybody in this room knows Charles Mingus.
Yes.
Okay. So,
not personally.
No, I didn't know him personally either, but I knew of him. Getting heckled by my co-reader. What the fuck, man? Don't make me get out the cane of justice on you, man. Yes, okay. So everybody knows Mingus, okay. It's called Eyes Like Mingus. Eyes like flint, like flecks of coal, like shiny bits of starless sky trapped in the ruins of a slag heap. Eyes like molten steel, sullen and angry, piercing, a bullet finding its mark like a jaguar, passionate and alive, yet hating the trap, pacing behind the bars like a skeleton trapped inside the mind behind. Eyes like Mingus, like notes caught in the net, like the grid of notation, like Mingus in shamanic Mexico, trapped in a chair, no strength to grip, no fingers to coax notes with, no feet to stand up and count with, no time, no signature. Eyes like concrete, shattering, like glass splintering, like the wrecking ball slap, like voltage unregulated, like a passion laid bare to the gallery's scrutiny, like the madman's frothing nightmare, like inexplicable accuracy of random fate, like Coltrane's, shit. Oh yeah, thank God. Like Coltrane's favorite things. I checked and I thought it, like fingers stilled, eyes like empty glass, staring bug-eyed into space, upturned and dispassionate, like a dream lost in the stars. Eyes like Mingus, silent, but never silenced.
Wow.
I like that one. And you can find all of these poems in a book somewhere published by Lummox Press, including this one. Okay, well, Ricky, no, you're not up. Davey? Come on, Dave. Let's get your act together. Oh, okay, sorry.
I'll do it.
I have a tendency to just take things over.
No, it's good. Raindog, everyone. Another round of applause, please. I love the Mingus poem. We actually had Charles Mingus' son here a few years ago, and he was telling me that...
you didn't tell me about him?
I know. I'm sorry. He was telling me that when he was a kid, his dad and Bob Dylan used to take him out trick-or-treating on Halloween. They put on full costumes and go house to house. Nobody knew who they were.
That's great.
But as Raindog mentioned, we do have books for sale in the bookstore. Raindog's books, Rick's, Dave's as well. So please do support the authors after the event by getting their books.
About Dave?
Yeah, sure.
Dave and I have a twisted relationship because he came to Lummox Press, probably from to me, to have his book, Bessie Smith book, published by me. I was excited to do it and everything, but time wore on and my memory was going really came. And he got published by some big shot press, and
He did well for himself, yeah.
I saw him come up in a Rolls Royce earlier, so he must be doing something.
So Dave Crittendon is a jazz and blues pianist, and his novel Then See If I Care, based on jazz age blues great Bessie Smith, was published by Blue Racer Books, not Lummox, as it turns out. He recorded a blues CD with harmonica player Louis Lista, produced by Little Feat guitarist Paul Barrera. Is that, am I saying that right? Barrera, excuse me. And we're just very excited to have Dave here to read with us this afternoon. So please, everyone, welcome Dave Crittendon.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It was very hard for me to write this book about Bessie Smith. I wasn't sure I could pull it off if it wasn't for my wonderful mentor, Les Plesko. I hope there's some of you here who knew Les. I don't think it would have happened or finally got finished. But I'm not really a poet, but I am a writer. I wanted to create a world for a young Bessie Smith at first, because it goes through from the beginning to the end. Of course, we don't have time for all that. And I devoted a whole bunch of time just trying to figure out how the hell I could make this anywhere near reasonably believable as an early piece of her life. So that's my attempt, and I hope I pulled it off. Okay. Oh, thank you. Thank you all for being here. And yeah, to Louis, to Les, yeah, and to my dear friend Billy McCoy, a great musician who just died 3 weeks ago in Philly. This is for you. And this is first person. I'm reading as Bessie, so, talk about nerve. Okay. I was born hungry, but now I'm fat. Every pound like money in the bank. There was always food, but it didn't take much to make me feel deprived. Seemed like weeks passed since Mama made beans and dumped a newspaper full of broken pig feet, maws, and snout into the pot with lots of pepper and sage. I prayed to get full off big bowls of soup without rice. I ate, and I ate, still was hungry. But kept it to myself. It would have broken Mama's heart to see me dissatisfied after all she'd done. Blue Goose Hollow on the edge of Chattanooga, Tennessee. Just cabins and gardens in the woods near Charles Street is where I come into the world, April 15, 1894. When Papa was living, the cabin seemed bigger than one crowded room. Daylight showing through chinks, kindling popped in a pot-belly stove that Mama prayed God to keep working. She prayed for more kindling to tame that bad wind rolling down Lookout Mountain, cold to the bone. Clarence, Viola, Tinny, baby Bud, and me huddled like puppies under 3 layers of clothes, old quilt stuffing wrapped around our feet, talking about when will summer come. Folks say they want to know all about me, Bessie Smith, Empress of the Blues, because I made money and I have that recognition they think is happiness. I tell them us Smiths were a flock of sparrows, not knowing a partners until we were forced to. No matter what Violas say, I remember Daddy, his voice and breath still on me. Can't take none of him back from my heart. He did sing to me and hold me dear. We had comfort, and loneliness wasn't worth a cent. We belonged to one another, and that feeling never left me, though so much is gone. My daddy didn't have schooling because of slavery always pressing down, but he could read some. He did spade work and loaded packets at the river, and we didn't want for nothing. Looked like we was moving up when the church got a big shed over by the bridge around 1900. Scrubbed it till there was no more bloody feathers and chicken stink. We were proud, like it was a grand church on a corner. Amens and feet laid the beat from the back to the front until the place rocked in solid time. I never learned the name of that song they brought from slavery time. That was the beginning of it all, the reason you know my name. I didn't know nothing about a brown-skinned world. Imagine the shock when Mama first took me to see the white folk. They were smooth and pink, and I wanted to touch their skin and rub against them like regular people. I brushed the white lady's hand, and she jerked it back. The nerve of these downtown darkies. I'm sorry, miss. She knows better. I didn't know what come over Mama. All the bowing and scraping. She never begged before. The woman turned sideways like she was looking back from the other side of the street. She whispered to the white man in the apron, Auntie, train your child. Mama held me close and kept me from touching a jar full of striped sugar sticks. We stood by baskets of nuts and onions. I picked up a handful of pecans while she talked to the man selling cloth. I'm sorry, sir. I forgot her manners, sir. But I knew I hadn't forgotten anything. I wondered why the nuts were sold when there were so many yards they could be had for free. Pay for what the girl got in her hand and you can go, the man said. Mama shook the nuts from my hand and then slapped me. It was twice the embarrassment to be punished in front of the white folks. Don't touch anything you ain't buying. Teach your gal before she come back here. Here? The owner said. We left the store lickety-split. I never knew Mama to talk hard and fast as she did once we were outside. She burned up my legs with more slaps, and nothing I said made her cool down. I hollered, trying to understand what I did wrong. Why you touch that? Mama said between swats. Because I wanted it. Stop wanting so much. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Want the Lord. That's all you got to do. Mama did ironing in a downtown laundry, was about 6 months pregnant, carrying Bud, when a crate of big pig iron broke on top of my daddy. You see an animal chopped up after slaughter? People said that's how Daddy looked. We fell in a hole after that and had to dig our way out. I didn't pray anymore like I once did. I knew the words, but they just wouldn't come. When Papa met the ground, I called him with my heart, begged him to take me because there was no other voice I wanted to hear. Maybe I stood too close to death because death has stayed so near. After Daddy passed, I feared Mama might slip away too. I told her this, but she said no matter what, we all have to stay our time. Just to ask broke my heart, but her arms held me like a song. My belly puffed out like a new puppy's. I walked the hollows, determined to grub, hating the people who had chicken coops, Spring was on, the morning glories, the sweet smell, clean sunlight, but I didn't care. If I had some coal, I could trade for eggs. If I had some copper, I could throw in some change for an old hen. But all I had was 2 sticks to beat ants with. I'd smell somebody's dinner and wonder how I could get invited in, but nobody was rich enough for that. My big sister Viola called the hollows a throwed-down mess, only fit for niggers too poor to live in town. She wanted to move, but Mama said no. She didn't want to see no more white folks when she got home. People say I'm rough, but when you had a good daddy and you lose him cruel, it's hard to stay nice. I stay ready to fight because danger is invisible as hunger, and you got to meet it when it comes. All us kids prowled tracks to trails, but no matter where we looked, the future was what we already had. Might as well lived in a cave until it was time to work. At least the hole in the mountain would have been ours alone. Viola said my anger started when I got hit with a rock aimed at somebody else. Maybe so, but I believe it started long before that. Mama pulled like a teamster to keep us breathing, but it wasn't enough. I couldn't stand having nothing but nasty grease to oil my legs, hoping my sister would outgrow a dress before it was too worn out for me to wear. Thoughts bumped each other while I hid a dime in the deep knot of a tree. That change seems pitiful compared to the money I've made, but that knothole was my first bank. If a tree can grow leaves, then I can grow pennies. There has to be an exchange between one hand and another to live good. Not everybody walk around half full, wearing ugly shoes. New clothes say, "Look at me," but old ones hide by the roadside. I watched and wondered how it feels to know money is still coming day after next. Those white people in the bank, serious in the marble hallways. They see what they can do, and then they go do it. They're mine, and mine not so different, because one day I'm going to have what they have. Big brother Clarence had already left town, promising to come back with pockets full of gold. I looked down at the river, squeezing Chattanooga like a snake. Felt it squeezing me way up the hillside. Townspeople ate rich every day. I watched them choose their meat and cabbage, pointing at what they wanted, in and out of stores, my friends carrying their bags for a penny, hoping a stray dime might mistakenly fly free. Dirty Green River left the rich ones alone, but it came from my father when he was tired of muskrats and mice. I wanted a flood to claim the town, though it could take our cabin too. High and mighty folks would have to watch the river like we did, hoping that they could look at the remains they'd be given. Those thoughts roosted like setting hens. I had to better myself. I had to have some gold to build a home high water could never reach. Mama thought I was evil at first, but finally decided I didn't ruin her washing on purpose. I tripped on sheets, tore holes in pockets, burned clothes with the iron because I just wasn't cut out for it. She let me run deliveries, go to school, prayed I'd settle down. Long as I understood there was never enough money for anything, she gave me freedom. Mama was thanking Jesus when I woke up. She should have been gone, but she kept holding Bud and made Tinny swear to get Ms. Watkins if her youngest got worse. The day was fresh with hungry birds, the sun huge in trees. I unbraided my hair, brushed it smooth to go with her. We shooed away chickens and goats and didn't let our dresses drag in the dirt. Mama's mind was tangled in the trees. She stayed close, her eyes everywhere but on me. Rustling branches and bird calls were the only sounds until she said Miss Sophie would fire her if she kept being late. I tried to comfort her, but she pressed her hand against my lips, stroked my lifeline without a word. We greeted other scullions where the path changed to good streets with popcorn chains of lights still burning. Bess, promise you'll do right, she whispered through the cold air. Yes, ma'am, just the other day I dreamed the cabin held so much gold the floor broke. All us Smiths had pockets full of coin. Mama said prayer was the only dreaming she believed. Her feet beat the sidewalk like horseshoes, her voice low and dark. Think I'll always be here to warn you? She folded her hand over mine. The rich man will chop your hand off before you'll take his money. But Jesus listens with a golden ear. He calls me darling. She was saying her time was nearly up. I quivered against her. I believe she heard my future tears falling, pressed her thumb into my palm to cool me, and she beat her fist against her leg, saying, yes, sir, his will be done. I gave her a look beyond my years, and she caught it. Her eyes changed to grief, but just when it seemed like she'd break, Mama shook off the blues with a snap of her head. She taught me that, how sadness changed because it has to. We watched the city come to life, but Mama didn't care about horses dragging stones. She pointed to kids filing into the foundry and boys hauling water towards the road gang. I watched her stride that sped to a near trot. I didn't let her get too far ahead. She belonged to me. Chattanooga was full of black men driving rigs, hauling every kind of load. We saw white boys running to risk an eye in the glass works. A good job none of us could have. After 2 streetcars passed, I realized Mama didn't have money to ride us. She didn't allow me to say anything. All the air was hers. She didn't allow boldness, but I frowned to keep Crackers from saying something to me. All of us stayed and watched Mama stagger when the blows caught her. When I prayed, she thought I was talking to God, but I was begging her, please don't go. A double file of black men stood padlocked together beside a trench that ran off the block. Office buildings already threw shadows at first light. The deputy unlocked the men beside a long wagon filled with tools. They were all ages and sizes. He talked hard, and they took it. Mama looked away, but reminded me to do like I was told when I got to her job. Old men with spiky beards shook their legs like something might roll out. Young men, strong as trees, stood like soldiers. They leaned on spades and pickaxes, wore metal collars on their ankles. They lifted heavy tools. They rubbed stiff hands together and stretched. Mama said if she could doctor Bud a solid week, he'd make it. Bud was dry, his skin clear as silk. New cold spots on his lips after I held him the whole night. It was sad leaving Bud because he begged us to stay. We were half block away when the lead man swung his axe. He had a beat that people don't remember now. Ain't nothing but a world of trouble. Trouble is all I see. Hurry, hurry, sundown here. Nobody care for me. Men's voices echoed off the windows and walls. The leg irons clanked, the lead man's voice high and strained like a squirrel running from a fire. If I'd listened to what my mama said, I wouldn't be sleeping in a rocky bed. If I could have seen where the path done led, I wouldn't have worms all in my bread. Thank you.
Dave Crittendon, everyone. Another round of applause. Thank you. I was gonna say, like that was a lovely piece of writing. You're definitely a poet, I think. So next up, we have Rick Smith, whose first reading was at Beyond Baroque here back in the 1970s. In fact, probably wasn't here. Was it when it was on Abbot Kinney? The other spot, yeah. Bjorn Borg's original space. He is a psychologist specializing in brain damage and domestic violence, and his books include Whispering in a Mad Dog's Ear, Hard Landing, and The Wren Notebook. As a lyricist and a harmonica player with the Mescal Sheiks, his work is on Blind Man's Trick, This World Is Not My Home, and Mars Market by the Hangen brothers. He's also heard in the Oscar award-winning film Days of Heaven. Please, everyone, welcome Rick Smith.
Thank you so much for coming out. Is it okay that I slept in this sweatshirt last night?
Adds to the offensive.
So, Raindog published some stuff of mine. He really got me back into writing. I feel the love. So he put out a thing called the Wren Notebook for me and Hard Landing. They're both all about the wren. And I'm not going to read from either of those books. I'm going to read you a newer wren poem, just to give you a taste of that, because it's kind of like a persona for me. I like seeds. When the fog laid in, a wren from two worlds came flying across the water. Dark was that water, darker still the wren. She herself was invisible, and so she was gone. You were saying the wren's flying in darkness, it isn't real. Because she was only a dream, and just dreaming it, you said, doesn't make it real. Sometimes I see things, that makes them mine, and just as real as the empty space that holds them, as they carry on wind from something towards something else. Dreams is what we've got. The flight is real. So then he also put out a book for me called Whispering in a Mad Dog's Ear, which my dear friend Lynn Fowkes did the cover for. And I'll read you a couple things out of this, but I really want to read you some new stuff. I'm looking for a publisher.
Sorry, Rick.
Hyannis, 1982. We're in Hyannis. It's cold. My 65 VW with California plates gets me to the lot behind the Trailways Depot. It's 11 p.m. in January. I got a $100 bill from some doctor up in Liam Lane who wants to get high. I leave the engine running. The lot is empty. The 1042 to Fall River, Pawtucket, and Providence is running late, but it's running. Tailgates fading out on Route 6. A guy in a Red Sox cap under his hoodie slips out from back of the building. That's who I'm looking for. I give him the 100. He hands me the Coke in a paper bindle. I take a little taste. I pull away. The heater hasn't worked for months, but now I won't need it. One thing leads to another comes on the radio. I love that song. I love this night. You know, Hyannis wasn't such a bad place till the wrong people started moving in. I've been thinking about death a lot for years. By the way, the last time I read here with Raindog, we had 4 people here.
He was moved up.
So thanks for coming. You can always get a parking spot at a poetry reading. That's one thing. When my ride shows, it's called, big homes have outlying territories, other bedrooms where you can get lost in pretense. Little apartments have tiny yellow tables for toast and promises. The narrow path, the shallow creek, small talk enough to fill up the room, and then the heart with all its treacherous circuitry. The space between us fills with heat and sudden interest in Latin percussion. I've lost the words for ending sentences, but when my ride shows, none of that will matter. In white light, when fever is the only truth, a question will occur and the answer will explain almost everything. So I'm working with the Mescal Sheiks. It's a pretty cool band. There's a CD out there, a couple of CDs out there actually. And this poem, they're actually gonna, we're gonna go in the studio and do this poem with percussion and bass under it. I don't know what's gonna happen. Like the beatniks in the 50s, when I was just a kid. Real poetry. There's a poem called Real Poetry. I was still a kid. It was late November on Route 413, Pineville, Pennsylvania. The ghosts were restless on the porch of the general store, the only store in town. In the distance, the sound of a hammer ringing off cold steel, pounding lonesome at dawn. My dad says, "Son, that's real poetry right there." Years later, on the day we buried my dad, me and Bernie raised a couple of cold rolling rocks at the Pineville Tavern, the only bar in town. We clicked those long necks and talked about Dad. He was with us for a moment. There was motion, I swear, in that smoky tavern air. Some guy down the bar starts mad dogging me. Real poetry right there. So speaking of my dad, which I will be doing, he's a pretty well-known painter. And this is a poem I wrote to him on his 100th birthday. You're hearing me, right? I never know if you're listening. Remember leaving Iowa City at 10? We were already in jail in Lincoln City by 2. You were with me that day. It took a damn helicopter to track us. We watched the Nebraska State Police hang a U on Interstate 80 just to give us a ride to the courthouse. So April 19th would have been your 100th. You've already been gone 30. You said, I'll be going away. I'll be leaving you alone to work things out. Come in alone, you go on alone, and you handed me leaves of grass. Dad, I've had the cuffs on me more than that one time. I've climbed into the front seat of a limousine to bicker over the price of an 8-ball. I was pulled out of La Bufadora drunk and bleeding from stupidity. Then how about that time in Herald Square when ballistics pulled 2 slugs out of the doorpost an inch from my head? You were there. We made the daily news. You're hearing me, right? I'm never sure you're listening. One time I had to sleep at Penn Station in February. First I had to walk there. It was the only idea I had that worked out that night. And this was dumb. We walked into Smalls in Harlem with some dude from West Virginia to score. I can't even remember how that one turned out. I'm an old man now, with grandchildren. I'm a doctor. I live in the burbs. I don't know if you're listening or if you'd even recognize me. I should have told this story at your memorial. We're driving home from New York City on the back roads of Bucks County, and a rabbit jumps out on the highway. It was Brownsburg Road and too late to break. It was just me and you and that rabbit still breathing. We got home near midnight. The rabbit wrapped in a towel, trying to hold on. You called the vet. At that time, that seemed reasonable, but now I know how weird it is to call a vet at midnight about a broken wild rabbit. The vet said, put him to sleep. The injuries were too final. You hooked a hose up to the exhaust pipe. And then it was just you and me in the Pennsylvania woods, digging by lantern light. They don't know this about you. I know you hear me. So we went to France. My dad married a wonderful woman, French woman. We went there for the honeymoon and stayed 16 months. Dad painted on the street. This is one of those days. Saint-Germain district, Paris, 1949. My dad sets up his easel in the ruins of Saint-Germain, and I get to amuse myself in the post-war debris. Concrete slabs and twisted rebar throw mad shadow in the morning sun. My dad takes a charcoal stick into the blank canvas, roughs out what's left of an apartment building. Stained canvas becomes a battlefield. The hand and the stick depend on tension. 6 steps lead up to nothing. Fascinating to me or to anybody who studies destruction. We try to imagine the noise this would have made, but the kids went deaf before they went blind, went senseless before the skin peeled away from the shock of fire. Theory and speculation no longer matter. There's disregard for the form and content debate. There's no counting of ambiguities. It all goes up in a flash, and it all goes up as one. But this is about art. Illusion that sustains us. Dad sketches out the one piece that is still recognizable as a wall, while I break rock and darkness falls. So we live out in the Inland Empire. I just love that name. And when you call wherever you live an empire, you better have something to say. So this one's called Way Out West. I catch a light at Foothill on old Route 66 that brought me west 50 years ago. The guy in the next car is licking up into the phone wires. A great screeching is going on up there. There's got to be 30 wild parrots gossiping on the line. We wait for the light to change, decoding the opinions expressed above. The noise, the fullness of life. It's 2:43 p.m. at the crossroads of the Inland Empire. The new Kansan Motel has its perpetual vacancy sign up. The orange groves, the vineyards have given way to strip malls. The river rock sheds and old stagecoach stops strung out along the base of the San Bernardino Mountains have mostly returned to the earth. The grand sycamore tree, though, where they hanged Sarah Teasdale, still stands strong, reaching toward heaven. It's a tenement for wild parrots, with a lot to talk about. I think Sally made a deal with some cowboy, and he didn't hold up his end. So she stabbed him in his drunken sleep. That was back in 1890. There's a fully nude review a little west of here now. The place is loud and dark and air-conditioned. You can hear What the Cowgirls Do blasting out of the speakers. It makes the imagination run a little wild. The promise of a full delivery of earthly delights can be deranging. We're only 50 miles from the coast, but it's tempting to stop and play the last hand right here at this strip joint. I think we need rain. Rain to wash these filthy streets so they shine. Shine with the possibilities of the Golden West, where the rainbow meets the sea, where the dream can take shape, where you can put your toes in the cool Pacific, if they don't string you up first for taking what you earned. So I grew up in New York City, mostly. A year in Paris, but mostly New York City. And all the way to like the 8th grade. And this is called Moving to Pennsylvania. I love doo-wop and I love rock and roll. It's really been my fuel all my life. It's come damn close to keeping me sane. Moving to Pennsylvania, June 1956. The second summer of my teenage career, the 5 Satins had In the Still of the Night in heavy rotation on WINS radio, 1010 on the dial, where Alan Freed held forth. He may have taken payola, but he sure played some good shit. There were some records that deserved to ride the airwaves. If a palm needs to be greased to make it happen, so be it. Dusk and early summer. Twilight lingers over the benches by the playground. School is out. Promise makes me lightheaded. I had a little pocket money that week, enough to take Joan Thorne up to the Palisades. I hugged up on her in the tunnel of love. She was a dark Italian girl, maybe 13. One night she let me carry her to her bed. I don't know where her mama was. I do know that Heartbreak Hotel was on WINS. And I was hard and confused. Under her unbuttoned blouse, I saw the fresh buds rising toward me, little tea cakes in an oven. We were alone in that apartment, 20th Street, east of First Avenue. Mama was out, Elvis was on. Blood pounded in my ears. I had to be home by 8:30. I was late, I was foolish. I guess I thought Joni would be there waiting for me later that week, but Tuesday we moved to Pennsylvania. I remember asking the movers if they had rock and roll out there. They weren't sure and they didn't care. So, this is a poem about what could be called stupid two-headed dudes. One night in Pasadena, that's probably for me. It is for me. I apologize. This shit should never be interrupted like that. One night in Pasadena, I didn't even try to restrain you. I could have grabbed you by the wrists, but I didn't want your knees to come into play. So I let you pound on my chest with your fists and with tears in your eyes. I deserved the beating. We stood by the swinging kitchen door, and it was over. You were using all your might, though, screaming, crying, and hurt. I was leaving, yes. I already had something lined up. It wasn't going to work out so well, but I didn't know that yet. There's a place where hunger and reason collide and split the mind, where we do things that make no sense. They say it's a blood flow problem, this terrible smallness of men. So, I want to conclude. I don't really want to conclude. I'm having too damn much fun up here. My son is here tonight. It's him up in the corner. I think he's up there. And, you know, you always want to give your son all the wisdom you have. I paid him to say that. This is called the lecture. This is directly to you, kid. Mind your wild heart. It can burst out of your chest or take you places off-road. Be gentle with all the little animals that walk through this world with you. Put the rage and resentment into a suitcase and burn it on the desert floor. Sometimes someone will need you to walk them through their storm. Offer your hand if you know the way. Remember, not every decision is blessed by moral clarity. Just don't do anything you have to lie about later. Don't go mad if you can help it, and remember, call your mom. Don't forget to breathe, and don't wake up next to treacherous women. Don't let anybody bend you over. Build something that works and bless the day you realize why you were born. Don't peak too early. And oh, when you do lie, make it count. Once I sleep in the wind, you can forget everything I've said. Water under a bridge. Write your own manual, sign it, go out clean. So this evening would not be complete, for me anyway, if I didn't play this freaking harmonica. There you go. Thanks to Beyond Baroque for letting us do this here. And Dave, your novels are really spectacular. I gotta say, I stole a bunch of shit from you already. And Raindog, you are an inspiration to the whole community. I know you're a grouchy old fuck, but you are. I love you.
No, they forgot me.
Thank you, Detroit.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Raindog. Another round of applause, please. We do, as I said, have books for sale. I'm sure, I haven't asked them, but I'm sure all of our authors will be willing to sign if you'd like to pick up some copies. But otherwise, feel free to stick around, hang out. We've got some refreshments, and enjoy the rest of the evening. Thanks so much.
Thank you.